In this episode of GYDA Talks, Robert talks to Amy McManus of AM Marketing, a Kent-based marketing agency and Google partner specialising in digital marketing.
Good morning and hello, this is Robert Craven and it's another GYDA Initiative podcast, another GYDA Initiative talk, and today I'm absolutely delighted that we've got Amy McManus with us.
Hello, Robert. Thank you so much for having me. I'm in my little soundproof box, ready to go.
Brilliant, great. So we've got tons to talk about today. I want to talk about the idea of small but perfectly formed agencies. I want to talk about your history, really, and how you ended up where you've got to, because you're interested to talk about mental health issues and I guess resilience. So can we start off with just give us a quick background to the agency, just like 5 or 6 sentences about the agency.
So the agency started 5.5 years ago. I founded it when I was doing some freelance work. I'd left a job that didn't end very well, and I thought, okay, I'll do some freelance work while I'm looking for another job, and it just grew and grew into AM marketing. Suddenly I had business cards, suddenly I had a website. The awards started coming in and the agency was founded. So AM marketing is sort of accidental, I suppose, in a way, but we're now a award-winning agency, Google partner. We obviously met you on the Google Elevator scheme, and we just keep on growing, keep moving forward.
So how many people have you got now?
We're a lovely, perfectly formed team of 5.
Perfect. So we also met at Social Day. We had a great conversation at Social Day. And we talked when we were there about how big you'd want the agency to grow to, and the idea that you'd kind of limit it. So how big do you see the agency growing? What sort of numbers do you envisage in terms of staff?
So we've always purposely limited our growth. Both my husband and I, Brad, my business partner, we did the big agencies in London. We did the big global corporate thing, and we found that either they get investment and they grow too quickly, or you get to a situation where perhaps you don't know what's going on, teams aren't working with each other. So when we wanted to grow AM marketing, it was very purposeful. We tried to limit the growth and only grow when we needed to. So in terms of growing the agency, it's always going to be very purposeful. It's always going to be never running before we can walk. But I think in terms of numbers, I'd say probably like the key number for me is 15. For me, that's when you start to, as a CEO or as a managing director, you can no longer, I don't like the word control, but you can no longer oversee everything. You have to start, making sure that you've got managers and great directors in place that are overseeing different teams. I also think at 15, that's when you start to lose this sort of unique selling point of being small and being the agency where a client rings up the phone and they know who you are, and it's sort of really friendly, and the sort of unique selling point that we currently have.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think there's the size of a rugby team is when you lose. That's just the point where you suddenly don't recognise everyone. You don't know who their husband or their wife is, whether they've got kids, whether they've been on holiday. You start bumping into people in the car park and not knowing they're part of the team.
Yeah, exactly.
So does that mean you're just saying we're going to go to 15, which I guess is like 1.3, 1.4 million turnover, and then we're going to stop? I mean, how can you that? Because once you're going, you can't stop like that.
Exactly, and that's exactly what has happened. I mean, this started as me being freelance, and now we're a lovely team of 5. So the idea being that when we get to 15, my idea of how the agency will grow is once we get to 15, the agency will start to separate into, I suppose, clusters, if you want to call them that, whereby you have each sort of separate teams working on different accounts, so they can still have that rapport with each other. They can still know everything that's going on with one account as a bigger picture rather than their individual job. and also the client still gets that sense of that sort of friendly small agency feel, even though it's a larger agency in size.
So I'm always amazed at Pret-a-Manger, because there's a thing about Pret-a-Manger, that all the Pret-a-Manger, it's a takeaway food store in the UK, and I'm always amazed how people, because each unit has its manager and its team and it is its family, and it is
Yes.
everyone you go into, you feel like you've arrived at I mean, I can only describe it as an independent business, a small business.
Yeah.
They manage to do that. McDonald's don't do that. Shoe shops don't do that. Marks and Spencers don't do that. But somehow Pret-a-Manger, because they keep their teams small, they manage to do that. And the other thing it reminds me of, there's a quote by it's one of those apocryphal Richard Branson ones. He keeps the teams to 20, then he breaks them off and splits them out into other places. So, but there's still something which I'm struggling with, which is when you're really, really small, and it's like the client says do this, and you say how high, and we'll do it, and we're absolutely happy to do that. And you're presumably, when you're small, you're making some assumption, because obviously it's different for different people. But when it's small, what you've got is you've got speed, you've got flexibility, you've got responsiveness, you've got intimacy with the client, and you compete on that nimbleness. At 40 or 50, so that's beyond your 15. Now you're 40 or 50. You're competing on brand and your values and your systems and your processes and your testimonials. So I struggle to see how I'm wondering rather how you take that transformation. Do you think you can keep the intimacy and the nimbleness when you've got 20, 30 people? Is that something? I mean, maybe we should come back to you on that in a couple of minutes.
Come back to me, obviously. Growing it, it's not something, growing an agency is obviously something that I'm very much a part of now. It's not something I've done before.
Yeah.
So I think it's very much a case of making sure that when you employ the right people. We employ people rather than qualifications. So you've got to pick the people that fit your culture, that have the same sort of ethical values as you, the same that are going to fit into the team well. But it's all going to be a learning curve. I would be silly to think that a team of 40 is going to be exactly the same and operate the same way as a team of 5.
But it kind of feels to me a bit like I'm just going to push you one more time on it. It feels like we all say, oh, we're going to get married and it's going to be a small wedding, just a few people, I'm not going to get wound up.
Suddenly it's 300.
And it's 300 and you're pulling your hair out and it turns into a nightmare. And I guess what I'm saying is that when you're 1 to 5 people, you've got one idea of what success looks like. When you're 5 to 15, you've got another one. You've got 15 to 25. So how far do you think you're going to take it? What's the infinity and beyond? 30?
No, I mean we're not trying to take over the world, Robert. We're not. We've never had investment. We've never had to need a board or any sort of VC or anything like that. So for us, we're not in a position where we want to go up against the likes of these sort of like huge London agencies. But still, not having that goal, we end up getting work from those agencies and are still getting clients that are coming for us from the larger brands. So we're never going to get to a point where we're taking over the world and we want a huge agency, but I'd much rather concentrate on quality over quantity.
So how does because you're not in central London, you're outside London.
No.
So do you see that as an advantage or a disadvantage?
It's both. I'd be an idiot to think that it's just an advantage. It's definitely a unique selling point for the right client. So we get clients that, they want to be a big fish in a little pond. They want to come to an agency where everyone in the office knows their name. They want to come to a place where, there's grass outside and they can sit and have a coffee with us in a discussion while they're looking at a sheep. They want that feel. But I'm we do lose clients to, we had one client who went with a large London agency because they said they were reassuringly expensive, or
Well,
they get or they get won over by the big large office and all of the staff there, and so we do lose out business. But then again, we gain a lot of extra business because we don't fit, I suppose, the traditional what the client thinks an agency should look like.
but you're not. I hope you're not trying to be all things to all people. So therefore, you have a sweet spot of a certain type of client who behaves in a certain way, who's looking for a certain set of values and systems that you offer. So what is the sweet spot that you're looking for? Because clearly it's probably not Shell or Newcastle breweries or whatever it is. Although I dare say if they say, could you do a campaign for them, you wouldn't say no. Or maybe you would. I don't know. What's the sweet spot that you think you really work well?
I think our sweet spot for us, we get a lot of work from people that have been burnt in the past. I'd say probably about 80% of the clients that we have, they've done the large agency thing, and they come to us and they just want something different. They want to be treated like a person, not as a number. That's I would say that's kind of our main sweet spot. Obviously, we have huge amounts of experience and knowledge and training in order to do the large clients, but we tend to find that it's a certain type. The sweet spot for us is a type of person that doesn't want the corporate BS.
Yeah,
they don't want to have to go through all the politics. They don't want to have to wait 2 weeks to get something changed on a website, and we do turn down a lot of work if we think the client isn't going to get on well with us, if we think that in a year's time, that they're not going to be happy. Like we're not trying to be everything to everyone, and we want to be honest and make sure that the client is always happy before moving forward.
So maybe this is time to ask you to almost plug yourself in a way, because I've just wanted to push this a little bit further. So who is your target customer? Or put it another way, if there was a non-agency watching, and I know this predominantly we have agencies watching, if there was a non-agency person watching, who would be the one? What would be the kind of the avatar? What would be the profile of the people that when they phone you, you go, oh yeah, this is one for us?
Okay, so we do have a few specialisms: health, beauty and well-being, gaming and entertainment, private schools randomly. We're very good at those, and actually we do a lot of work in the cannabis market in the US and Canada. But I'd say sort of we had one client ring us up who wanted to work with us straight away, and we just said, yeah, this is perfect. They're actually a global brand. But they make healthcare products and beauty products that are vegan, 100% sustainable, 100% natural, and they specifically, because it matched their company ethos and their company story, they specifically wanted to work with a local agency, despite the fact that they were a large, sort of global, very popular brand. I mean, they've been in Vogue, they've been in, huge magazines. So, and we're doing an amazing job for them. We've increased their sales. They've had the best year they've had on record so far. But yeah, when they rang us up, we're like, yeah, we can absolutely help you out, because the way we run our company's aligned.
Yeah. So in the same way that you can have a set of 4 or 5 values, you look at a member of staff and say they need to tick all these boxes, otherwise they can't work here. You can do that with a client, is what you're saying.
I think that it's really important, and I'm sure we'll go on to this later with regard to what I've experienced with burnout and mental health. It's just as important as it is for a client to sack an agency as it is for an agency to sack a client. Yeah. You get otherwise you get into a situation where perhaps you're unhappy, the client's unhappy, they don't work well with you, you're finding it difficult to understand them and give them the service that they want. So it's really, really important, not only for your own mental well-being, but your mental being of the people doing the work, your team, to make sure that the clients you have on board fit in with your agency.
Because certainly part of the ethos of some digital agency factories, I can only describe it as that, is, you know, you take youngsters on, you work them to an inch of their life, you burn them out, spit them out, and you know you can do that because you can only have so many heads of department. So for every head of department, you have 8 or 10 or 20 what I call digit monkeys, pound them away, trying to make stuff happen, burn them out, let someone else take the move on. So I know we talked about this at Social Day. You feel very strongly about mental health issues. You also feel very strongly about resilience. So what's the backstory to that for you?
It was when my company was a year old. I was in a head-on car accident. A lady hit my car head-on. I went back to a brick wall. I've had like sort of 5 years of I've had years worth of treatment. I've got back surgery even next week, and had a lot of mental health issues, PTSD, anxiety. And when you're in a situation where I was, where you feel as though you're going to die, it makes you realise what's important. And at that time, with my agency only being a year old, I did the classic thing where you take any work you can get. If someone wants, oh great, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. And some of it isn't right for you. Some of that work isn't putting you in the direction you need to go. Some of it isn't going to grow your agency, isn't going to take your agency where you want it to go. So then you become very selective about, okay, does this fit our agency? Is it going to take us forward? Are we going to be able to help this client? Because at the end of the day, it's all about helping the client, right? It's all about making sure that they get the best service that they can get. And if you can't give that to them, then you need to be honest, because that's just that's just better for your mental well-being and the mental well-being of your team. But yes, having been in that situation, you realise what's important, and you start making better choices. You start saying no. And that car crash and going through that experience taught me to say no, which I think is a very important, a very, very important skill for agency owners to learn.
So in a way, you're lucky. There's a fantastic article by a guy called David Meister called Strategy and the Fat Smoker. David Meister was an accountant. He wrote a book called The Professional Service Firm, The Trusted Advisor, and it applies to accountants and professional service firms as our digital agencies. Everything he says applies. And he says that at 62, totally overweight and a compulsive cigar smoker, he has this massive heart attack.
Yeah.
And he's the reason the article is called Strategy and the Fat Smoker is because up until that time, he knew what he should be doing. He should be eating carefully, he should be taking exercise, he shouldn't be smoking, But it took the massive heart attack for him to do that. And his point is, wouldn't it be so much easier for people if they didn't have to have the massive heart attack, the big car crash or whatever it is, to see the sense? Because everyone thinks they're invincible. Everyone thinks that, you know, they're going to swerve the cancer, they're going to swerve dementia, they're going to swerve whatever it is. And there's all this good common sense out there, and yet we don't buy into it. So in some senses, I guess that's your massive heart attack at 62.
Yeah, exactly.
Fortunate enough to do it considerably younger.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And that's I was speaking to a lady at Social Day actually, and she was saying she was a therapist, and she said that she has a lot of clients that, you know, they have the heart attack or a stroke or get over cancer, and they get into the stage where they're perhaps in their 60s, where they've learned to say no and they realise what's important. But I suppose I'm lucky in that it's just happened. It happened in my late 20s.
Well, you're lucky that you've come out the other side and you don't seem to be damaged by it, or
yes,
so that's an outside.
Yeah.
But clearly you're still having treatment, and still you've talked about anxiety and so on and so forth. So I mean, is it something as binary that you were ill and now you're better, or are you still dealing with the aftershock?
Yes, yeah. I think you're never going to be in after a life-changing event like that. You're never going to be in a situation where it's black and white. You're ill or you're better. You're going to carry stuff with you. But rather than, I suppose, wallow in it or feel sorry for myself, it genuinely I used it to push me on. When I had the accident, the agency's very, very new. I thought, I'm not going to be this statistic of another failed startup. I'm not going to be another failed agency. About very strongly about being a woman in tech, and like this had to succeed. I wouldn't be another woman in tech that started a business and then it didn't go anywhere. So very much the AM marketing became part of the recovery process and became my goal and became
your therapy almost.
My therapy, exactly, my therapy. And that's why mental health and mental well-being has become so important in the agency, making sure that we pick clients that fit in well with our ethos, making sure that our staff are well looked after from a work-life balance point of view. It all intertwines and becomes part of the story.
What I really like is that this is the story, inverted commas, backstory. But you don't wallow in it, and you don't make it here's my agency, and if I hadn't, and there are lots of people in Facebook world whose tragedy or unfortunate circumstance becomes their raison d'etre. In other words, people go to your agency because you do good work. People go to your agency because it's got a good vibe. They don't go to your agency because you're that poor girl who wishes on endlessly about how.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I hope they don't. And I hope you boot them
I hope they don't too. Yeah.
Oh, you poor thing.
You poor thing. I'll give you some work. Here you go.
So just going back to where we were before, how do you think you compete with? We talked about how you compete with the big dog if you're a small dog. The big dog has, look at us, we've got the brand, look at our client list, look at our deep voices, look at our offices, look at our ping pong table and our awards. So just going back to that briefly, how do you compete with them, or do you just don't see it as competition?
I think it obviously depends on the client. We've had a couple of clients that have actually come to us from large agency. And we had one case last week where we took a look at the PPC account, and it was awful. So what people and what clients, unfortunately, perhaps get a bit bamboozled by and think that the big means better, or big means better quality. So as you were quite rightly pointing out, that you get a situation perhaps sometimes in some large agencies where you get the big, all the different teams, you get the director, and then a lot of the work is being done by a grad who's being worked to the bone, perhaps has only been doing it for a couple of months, perhaps isn't Google qualified. So sometimes you get a situation where the work isn't up to scratch. So the way that we compete as a small agency is, not only do we know that our work is incredibly high quality and is always done by someone that's at least sort of has been doing it for a couple of years or 3 years, not usually, has all of their Google qualifications and has been trained by us, but also you'll have Brad managing your account who's been working in Also, you'll have Brad managing your account, who has been, worked for the likes of Mediacom, OMD. He's managed accounts on behalf of Disney and Marvel, and will be doing a lot of the work himself. And one of the unique selling points we do find is because we're out of London, is because people want that personal, local feel, and they want to feel like a big fish in a little pond.
Got it. Great.
We will always lose out to the client that wants the big shiny office, that wants all of the beanbags.
I don't think there's a problem with that, because you don't want them in any case, because they're going to swan down in their Series 7 BMW and expect a car parking space and and so on and
Yeah.
so forth.
Oh, you won't get car parking in Canterbury. No car parking in Canterbury. You can use the park and ride.
that's really noble of you, and generous to allow people to do that. So could you just talk a bit more about the culture piece, because I'm still, everyone talks about culture. They all say, oh, we really work hard on culture. Is it something that you deliberately work on? Is there like a culture document? Is it just something you make up as you go along? Is it something that's kind of in your waters, whether it's right or not? I mean, how do you, because obviously culture is really important for you. So how do you kind of manage that piece?
So yeah, we don't have a culture document. I think that the word culture is a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? Oh, you've got to have the right culture. You've got to have, and I kind of think that having a culture document sort of goes against.
Yeah.
What,
it's like be spontaneous. It's like,
yeah, exactly. For me, it was just obviously we're there to do a job. We're there to be professional, and we're there to work for the client. But I don't see at the same time why that means you have to come in suited and booted. Why you have to be, very serious, and no one's allowed to talk to each other. We want, the whole point is the overall bigger picture is to create an environment where someone is happy to come to work and is going to be doing the best work. I'm a great believer in that people do their best work and people do award-winning work when they are happy and when they are comfortable, and when they are giving 100% rather than 50% because they stayed in the office until 10 p.m. and they got back into the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. So an example of some of the things we add, if someone's still in the office at 5:30 p.m, we say go home. That's it. You've done your work today. So we don't allow late working. We do charity days as a company, where the whole company will go out and volunteer for a local charity, spend some time outside, do some picking up rubbish on the beach or something like that. We allow extra lunch breaks if people want to go and give blood, or at the end of the day, hours off. It's flexible working as well. So, for example, someone's got an appointment and it's easier if they stay at home, they work from home that day for medical reasons. We allow mental health days for our staff. If you want to take a day off because you need to work on your mental well-being, that's fine, no questions asked. So those are sort of some of the examples of it's difficult to sort of define culture, I suppose.
Well, culture is how we do stuff around here.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely quote about what's the quote? The quote goes, culture is defined by what you'll let your staff get away with. In other words, culture is defined by what you will tolerate.
Yes. Okay.
So if you'll tolerate someone coming into work and rolling up a joint, and they smoke the joint, and you don't say anything about it, that's kind of a definition of how you're prepared to tolerate it, and therefore you get everything that comes with that, good or bad. If on the other hand you don't tolerate it and you say, sorry, this is the workplace, I know, but actually we cannot condone that in the workplace, so could you just put it out, and actually it's a sackable offence, but not this time, then you're determining the culture. So there's a sense that it's the minimum level that you'll tolerate that the culture defines rather than the maximum. And if you tolerate people persistently coming in late, or if you tolerate people delivering substandard work, that's the level that you're dealing with. And it's about ironically, it's about our responsibility as the owners and the founders and the directors of the business to say, actually, that doesn't fit in with how we want to do stuff. And I think it's quite a complicated thing between aspirational values, the values we actually work on, because obviously if we say we work hard here and then you take a 4-hour lunch break, that isn't too clever. But on the other hand, if you're out there speaking about something, then it's kind of different again. So there's a kind
Absolutely.
of there's a weird thing about how the culture works. And I certainly know that larger organisations do end up with, you know, kind of a culture document saying, which is partly the way the document is designed and shown is part of, this is how we do stuff around here, but they end up creating processes like 5% of profits go to charity, everyone has to spend 1 day a year working for a charity, the offices are open in the evening for homeless people to use the computers or whatever it is. So some of it is I think some of it's process driven or manualized. And I just think it's really interesting how, yeah, how as our agencies grow, we need to be more deliberate about it. It's almost
that's true.
like monthly meeting. Are we living our values? Are we maintaining the culture we claim to maintain? As a kind of reminder. And
so I suppose if I could define our culture in one sentence, it would be: we work hard and we look after you, but if you take the piss, that's it.
But chop your legs off at the knees, just the once. You cross the line, just once.
We've been very lucky so far. Our staff, they work extremely hard. They do extremely good work, and they put the effort in, and they're rewarded for that. Because, you know, whether it's the charity days, whether it's taking people out for dinner on their birthdays. But, you know, you think we don't have personal use of phones in the office. You're not allowed to go on your social media account. You know, you have to turn up. If you turn up late, it will be noted down. So it is the classic example: do your job and work hard, and this will be an amazing environment for you. But if you take the piss, then we're going to have a problem.
And when we met at Social Day, you were speaking at that event?
Yes, I was speaking at that event.
What were you speaking about?
Oh, at Social Day, I was speaking about remarketing and retargeting. And we were talking about social media ads and how you get so many different ads presented to you that just seem to be like the one size fits all, one image, one bit of copy just sent out with absolutely no A/B testing, and just how just a couple of tweaks, even for small agencies, even for one-man bands that are doing it, just a couple of small tweaks can make a huge amount of difference, lower your budget, increase your return on investment, and make a great amount of extra for your client.
And do you find that your speaking helps business, or is it just something you enjoy doing?
It was something that I started doing because they didn't have a speaker at an event I went to, and I knew the woman that was organising it. She said, "Can you just quickly go up and do something?" I had my laptop at the time and just quickly did a workshop that I'd done the day before for a client, and then someone asked me to speak, and then it just kept on rolling from there. Now we definitely get a lot of business from the speaking that I do. It's not only incredibly enjoyable and I love doing it, but I think it's a case where I just love giving information out to people and love getting people excited in digital and excited in digital marketing. I'd probably say, I don't know. I'd probably say we probably get about a third of our business from the speaking. And
wow.
Yeah.
And in total, how much of your business is word of mouth, referrals, recommendations in total?
I'd probably say about the same.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's a huge number. That's why we spend so much time on the unique selling points of our business and developing this company culture of being the friendly agency that's going to look after you and not going to rip you off and take your money.
To me, it just feels like events and speaking really, to me, just feel like a no-brainer. Not because we do it. We do it because it's a no-brainer, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And it's an opportunity for people to. It was a bit like Facebook Live, which I've gotten into recently. I had a big row with someone who said, "I don't know why you do Facebook Live, because you put your phone up and things happen behind." You know, I did one. The first one I did was at Brighton SEO, and as I'm talking, like police cars go by behind me, and then some people go behind and they photobomb me and stuff. But actually, my argument is that's cool because it's it's showing
Real.
people how you respond. It's showing people where you are. It's showing people the ordinary you rather than the shiny you with the I'm going on and I'm all ready and the corporate video. And this guy was absolutely adamant that he'd never do it. And my point was, well, so you're kind of, and it didn't fit his brand. Let's be fair about it. He's got a very polished brand.
Yes.
My point was that would make it even more compelling because you get an insight into how he worked and what I like about Facebook Live is it is unedited, it is raw. We probably get 150, 200 views, of which I know half the people and the other half are people you start seeing. And that to me is worth its weight in gold. It's not about quantity, it's about engagement. I then, like you, I go to an event. I was amazed at how many people will have seen my Facebook Live pieces, even though they take 5 minutes. A blog takes you 2 hours,
Exactly.
Video
it's unedited, it's beautiful, it's live, it just goes out and there it is. And I'd say that both Facebook Live and Instagram stories are actually two ways that we get a lot of our business, because people want that VIP ticket, they want to see what you're like. And marketing being a service, it's very much a case you want to like the person that you're working with. So if you're constantly showing your face and showing your office and showing who, it's like they know you before they even come in for the meeting. And at Social Day, I had a lady come up to me and ask if she could hug me. And it was wonderful. She said that her and her friends are part of a digital women's group and they all watch our Instagram stories every week, and she just wanted to meet me and say how much she enjoyed them.
My point really is that it's not just fluffy, if that makes sense.
No,
if it was just fluffy and part of the Facebook generation, that's one thing. If it was just fun, that's another thing. But I'm finding that you're getting. So I've now got some followers in Berlin, and as a result of that, I got some work in Berlin. That came from Facebook Live, and it's something you kind of can't control, which is kind of quite nice. But yeah, I'm glad you're a great fan of that as well. So do you encourage video for your clients, or are you strictly performance in terms?
Oh no, definitely video. And I think part of the reason we got put on the Google Elevator scheme with yourself, Robert, was because of our work with YouTube and video. So we're great promoters of not only professional video for whether you're doing YouTube advertising or you're just placing content on your site, but also, as you say, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and everything that's a bit more of the backstage of your company, particularly when it's a service and people want to see the real person. I'm doing a talk in September at Brighton SEO about Imposter Syndrome, and and the thing for me is this sort of this pre-created content, and particularly just images, and when you place that on social media platforms, it does increase this idea of imposter syndrome. People constantly compare themselves to your beautiful Instagram, which is of course all a lie. And I do believe that the Facebook Live and having video and having that realness behind your brand really helps clients, but also your peers, see your real business and see who you really are. So I'm a great advocate of them.
Well, I'm at Brighton SEO as well, as it happens. I'm running a directors forum, so it's quite a small, discreet piece, but I'll be there as well.
I'll see you there.
So just kind of wrapping up, because it's I really like the story. I really like the small and beautifully formed piece. I really like we can compete against the big boys, where in a way that they can't compete with us, and therefore we have a specific segment. I am sort of moved by the story of the injury and the resilience.
Thank you.
And the fact that it's part of the story rather than the story. and I just love the whole story. So just kind of wrapping up, if you there's a number of different ways you can answer this, but it's like, what's your one piece of advice to agency owners? If there's something that you had to impart, some message you had to impart, whether it's a secret source or whether it's something you wish you told your younger self, what's your kind of your one-liner or series of one-liners?
For me, it would be that you don't have to be Superman or Superwoman, that you don't have to do everything yourself and work yourself to the bone. When you're starting your agency, money is generally an issue. So you get to a situation where you think, oh, I'll do this myself, So concentrate on what you're good at, concentrate on what your expertise are, and then get someone in who has an expertise. It could be accounting, it could be your own marketing, but make sure that you surround yourself with people that are going to support you, rather than, because if you're in a situation where you are not getting any sleep and you're working yourself to the bone, then you're not going to be giving the best to yourself, to your clients, and to your work.
Brilliant, Amy. That is absolutely fantastic. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. I'll definitely see you at Brighton SEO, and I'm sure we'll meet up again. Thank you so much.
Robert.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.